world where achievements and accolades motivate us to do more and be more, we're often left wondering, is this really it?
Deep inside, you know there is more to life. You're ready to leave behind the old, push your way through, and claim the deeper life that's calling you.
That's where we excel.
We're your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslak.
And this is the Soulful Leader Podcast.
Sit back and relax as we share the shortcuts we've uncovered to help you make shift happen.
Hi, welcome to the Soulful Leader Podcast. This is Stephanie, and I'm here with Maren. And holy cow, you better put your seatbelt on for this one, because this has got a lot of fire, a lot of energy, and it's a hot topic about reactivity and responsiveness. And have you ever been in a relationship where someone just freaking pushes your button every single time, and you want to reach, you have all these little thought bubbles going on, and you have one scenario where you reach over and you grab their neck and you shake them, and then you have another one where you blow them up. It's like these little comic strips, and yet there's internally, it's like you have one foot on the gas in your car and the other foot on the brake, and you're all revved up and nowhere to go. That is what this podcast is all about today. So Maren, you've got a great story that we can start us off with. I would love to hear this soulful leader reactivity responsive journey that you have been on recently. I don't even know what to say what it is.
So for the past week, there's been this interesting situation going on in my life. There was a leader that I work with, and she was offended by something and stepped down from her leadership position. And this happens all the time in our world, right? That's what we see a lot of people do. She had signed a contract and, basically blew up the contract, etc. And one of my jobs was to try and find out where she had been with the things that she was in process. Like, she had things in process, right? As we do as leaders, right? We have things in process that we're responsible for. And basically she put up a wall, and it was like, nope, not giving any information, not going to go there. And then started.
So she shut down. So
she shut down.
So it's like she has all this information and nowhere to go. So what she did, instead of sharing and asking for help, which is we've talked to on Soulful Leaders, she shut down and did what? What did she do when she shut down and went inward?
Well, yeah, she reacted. So the reaction, what I think of as the reaction, is that she basically said, F you, hell no, I'm not doing this. And it's very much like a little kid of I don't want to, you can't make me.
Mm-hmm. And made a mess and left everybody with the mess to pick up.
Exactly.
Like a small child in a temper tantrum,
right?
Of a grocery store in the candy aisle,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a justification for it, because she was offended and it didn't seem like she was being supported the way that she thought she should be supported. And it's like all of the justifications. And I think that's the difference between us as adults when we throw our temper tantrums and children when they throw theirs. Children don't know how to justify it, right? They just scream and yell until they get what they want. Whereas as adults, we scream and yell or shut down or, say F you, and then we justify it to ourselves, to everybody else, and try to get everybody on board with how we're justifying it.
We're just fancy children, basically, all dressed up in a nice, Chanel outfit or something, and heels. I don't know. It doesn't mean that we are actually any further ahead as children.
Right.
We're just, we just have more money, or we have more chutzpah. I don't know.
And the thing for me in looking at it was there's two things. One, I got to look at myself and where I keep doing that and where I'm being a temper tantrum throwing child. And I also, I have so much compassion for her, because she's had a hard life. And when we react, what we do is we're not actually reacting from who we are. We're reacting from a pattern that came from our life.
which
So
has
here's
informed who we are. So when someone says, well,
it's who
that's
we think we are.
exactly who we think we are. Exactly. Thank you, Maren. Because we end up saying a statement like, well, that's just who I am. I can't change because this, that, and the other thing that's happened in my life has made me this way. And so
Yes.
therefore we are imprisoned and we feel that there's no way, an old dog can't learn new tricks. It's too late for me. Thanks very much. Here I am. Take it or leave it.
I love that. I love that description because that's that's what we do, right? We give all
And
the
so,
this is the justification thing that
yeah.
I was talking about. We justify why. And when we've had a hard life, when we've had things that happen to us, it's easy to justify it. And those are true things. Like if you've been through abuse, if you've,
Oh,
gotten
yeah.
addiction, if you're, and we've all had something that's horrible that's happened to us. So there's always a justification. Well, I'm like this because that person broke into my house 5 years ago and stole all of my stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good justification. I would understand it. So then people end up taking sides. I either understand or I don't understand. And now it's a right, wrong, good, bad, very binary,
Oh.
this or that situation.
And just as you're talking, I'm exhausted. I'm already exhausted. It's like I don't even want to show up. And I think that's what happens is that
Yeah.
people either go, you know what, I'm not even going to go into that environment. We talk about culture, right? Company culture.
Mm.
And it's like I'm not even going to go into that field because I just can't even handle that culture. And so now what am I going to do? And we keep isolating ourselves and isolating ourselves. And I'm not saying that we want to go into, unhealthy relationships with other people or other things, but it's like we can't change anyone ever. The only
Outside of
person,
ourselves.
exactly, the only person we can change is inside with who we are. And so what Joe Dispenza often says is we have to break the habit of being ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's like a momentum. I always say think of a ball rolling down the hill. Like once it it might be a little hard to get started, but once it gets started, it just keeps rolling. It goes faster and faster and faster, and so it's hard to stop. But here's the thing, something that's moving actually is easier to change direction.
Well, and the interesting thing is that so first of all, there is an option other than reacting, because like I said, reaction just comes from a pattern. It's
Mm-hmm.
not who you are. So there is something behind that pattern who is you, the authentic you.
Right.
And the ball rolling down the hill is the pattern.
Well, and I often get clients to talk about this too, because they'll say, they're always looking outside of themselves and valuing themselves based on someone else's opinion of them
Mm.
or their bank account's opinion of them or whatever. They're looking outside the weather. Oh, the weather's bad. I feel bad. Oh, the weather's good. I feel happy. Oh,
Right.
we're
Oh, this person
constantly,
did this to me, so I'm happy. This
yeah,
person did that to
there's
me,
the
so I'm upset.
justification. And it
Right.
doesn't mean that you don't feel your feelings. And it doesn't mean that, you can't be happy when it's sunshine. Sure, you can. The thing is, if we're dependent on it, if we're
Mm.
attached to it, we will never ever be free. So how do we make the shift? Right? Like what is required then is that we need to find that way inside. And that is the road less traveled. We've talked about this many times. And it's like, even what does that mean to go inside? That doesn't mean to isolate and remove yourself from the world. Although it may take a time to just stop and go inward and listen to the internal world that's going on. Because I can tell you, if outside is the hot mess, I can tell you got a hot mess inside. It's a mirror. It's a mirror, people. And there's nothing wrong with that because I often say, our mess is our magic. It's like we have all of this hot messness going on inside of ourselves because we also have the life force and the light
Mm.
to transform it. I am so tired of people saying, pivoting or adaptation to a certain situation. It's like, no, there is no adaptation. There is no pivoting. Really true resiliency is evolving. That means taking all that hot messness, its energy, and being able to then compost it and turn it into something beautiful. That takes a practice. That takes a community. That takes, love. It takes love.
It does
Love for
take love.
yourself and love for, because when we're talking of reaction, You had mentioned about this too. It's like, this unfortunate, this woman who's having a really volatile reaction. And if you think of any kind of skin reaction or an allergy reaction or something like that, that it grows and it's itchy and it's irritating. And what do you want to do to something that's reactive? You want to scratch it. You want to give it energy. And you're just told, don't scratch it, just leave it alone. Are you like, nuts? It's making me crazy. I got to scratch it. I got to scratch. So it takes a certain level of discipline, of actually being still and making a different choice. Yeah, because you talk to us about the reaction and how
So
damaging.
the thing
Yeah.
that I found is that the real place to make the shift is there has to be some space. So I think what you're talking about with like like when we get bitten by a mosquito and we want to just itch it and it just makes it more itchy, and then it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
this ongoing thing. What happens with a reaction is unless there is someone who can stop the reaction, it becomes a chain of reactions,
Mm.
right? So if I am volatile and I'm not controlling myself and I'm in a reactionary mode, I am more than likely going to bring that out in you.
Mm-hmm.
The other place that it's a chain reaction is in my own head. And you started with this of like all of those when your foot's on the grass and also on the brake and you have all this energy and you can't go anywhere. Well, guess what? It explodes inside of us. And we have 8 billion thought bubbles of good, bad, and like ugly, right? It just is like, I want to rip that person's eyes out. I want to do this. They deserve that. All of the stuff. That's a chain reaction that's gone
Mm-hmm.
off inside of you.
Mm-hmm. And
And
that's where chronic pain comes from. A lot of it. If you haven't had a
yeah.
direct impact of something, a lot of times, a chronic pain or dis-ease illness is caused
Mm.
from an internal reaction, an inflammatory okay,
Inflammatory.
thank you, an inflammatory response is what's happening. So you have an inflammation. I'm like, what has got you inflamed?
Yeah. That's a great question. And that takes me right back to the space. So, the thing that I've found for myself is I have started asking a single question, which is what else is going on here? What else is going on here? Because when I find myself in a reactor, when in a reactor, right? In a reactionary mode, it's always because it's like I said, it comes from a pattern from my past. That pattern has recreated itself in my present. So
Mm-hmm.
if I am a victim, I will create myself into another victim mode. Here's a great example from my own life. I recently had some problems with my back, and I noticed that oftentimes when I have problems with my back, it's because I'm a strong and independent woman and I have trouble asking for help.
And you don't need anyone.
I don't need anyone.
That's the lower self's belief, not
The
your
lower
true
self
self. Yeah.
belief. And so, in order for me to ask for help, I cause a physical issue in my life. And then
Mm.
I can ask for help. I can also be a martyr. Poor me. I'm so
Mm-hmm.
brave. I can do it. Does this resonate with anyone out there? I
Yeah,
don't think
because
I'm the only one.
it gets you attention, it gets you accolades,
Yes.
and yet internally, this is what happens too. Is like when there's chronic pain or disease or illness and I'm not just talking physical, I'm talking
Right.
mentally and emotionally and just like, when things aren't working out the way you really want them to be working out. We can default back into this martyr mode or this poor me, I'm suffering or I have pain mode because it gets us attention and it gets us and addicted to a inflammatory response inside that's actually giving us a hormonal rush.
Yeah.
And it's the easiest way to do it because we have a pattern that we have habitually practiced that now we can instantly tune into and we can get
Right.
our pharmaceutical hit right away. But to
All it takes is
change
just
that,
a, yeah,
exactly.
Just takes a little bit of pain. If I just
and
put
poof.
myself in a little bit of pain, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain, and then I get that rush from my internal chemicals, and then I
Yeah.
can justify it.
And we'll make it all about the outside world, to justify it.
Yeah.
But if we can turn it inside, or we'll make it all about our internal world, that where we're not good enough and we're horrible,
Mm.
and this always happens to me, poor me.
And
And
this
this
is
is,
where my
yeah,
question comes in of what else, because there's always something else going on. What else is going on here?
and what is this giving me permission?
Right.
Like, what is it?
Something
Yeah,
there needs to be something that we ask or that helps us to stop the rolling ball. You mentioned the rolling ball earlier of like it's going downhill, it's gathering steam. And that's the poor me, that's the drama, that's the itty bitty shitty committee that's going through our head. So there needs to be some tool that we have, some practice that we start and then continue with to help us to break the pattern, to say, to stop the ball from rolling downhill for just a moment. And for me, that's the question: what else is going on here? What am I giving myself permission to do? And I realized what was nice for me was when I saw this woman's pattern and what she was doing, and that she was blowing herself up, and she's got a history of abuse in her past, and there's no blame or shame there. That's where she is in her life. She needs that. She's getting her chemicals, and she needed to make that space for herself. That's great. I also saw it gave me an opportunity to stop and go, oh, Maren, look at you're doing that in your own life right now too.
yeah. A lot of times, when somebody is acting out or different ways, it's giving us an opportunity to choose a new behavioral pattern that we want
Yeah.
to install into our life. And that's where we have to have a regular practice enough that we can say, oh, I just caught a pattern, or I just caught where my breath got taken away, or I'm into reaction. Note to self, now I know when that happens, sit back inside myself, find the little me inside me that's literally having a hot potato mess or whatever you want to call it. And I go and get her. I rescue her rather than rescue the person outside, because that's a pattern of mine, is rescuing, and learning to turn it inward to say, what if I rescued myself right now? What is that part needing within me so that I'm not in reactivity, but I can be in responsiveness? And you just go in and you go in. And this is an effort. It is a practice. And to do it when,
Sure.
I always say, do it when you don't need it so that you'll remember it when you do.
Right. Because when those chemicals are firing in our bodies, we don't want to stop them. We won't want to, right? So when somebody is in, like I said, reaction tends to cause chain reaction. So somebody comes at you in their reactive mode, blaming you for something, shaming you for something, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We go into our reactive mode, defending ourselves.
Right.
And in that moment, if you can start to go, okay, I can listen from a place of non-responsive, non-reactiveness. Now I'm in responsiveness. And
Yeah.
it may mean that I can say, I have to say to that person, can I get back to you? I need to get back to you on that.
Yeah. Or even just saying, can I just give me 5 minutes? I just
Right.
need 5 minutes.
Instead of even
And
can I, just like, I
I,
need
I just
five
need five
minutes.
minutes and I'm going to come right back. I just need five
Right.
minutes for a sec. And that you
Right.
take that 5 minutes or however long you choose, and you go and you breathe and you find that part that's reactive and say, what is this pattern?
Right.
And I often have a
Or what else
question.
could be going on here? It's
Right.
like that person that just attacked me, it's not personal, it's because they are in reaction. And can I listen past the attack to find out what's really going on? Because 99.9% of the time, it's got nothing to do with us. And we take it personally and take it on ourselves. And then the chain reaction goes on in us and we pass it on to somebody else.
That's right. It's like it's a virus. It becomes
It
a
is a
virus.
virus.
And if we are looking for world peace, we always say that. What is that? The very common thing. What do you want? World peace. But it's like peace. It is not about the peace outside. I mean, that's a side effect. That's a side effect. It's not about doing more. It's actually about going in and finding out where you're at war within yourself. and where patterns are literally robbing you of your own personal freedom, or dream killing,
Yeah.
the murderers inside yourself that are killing your dreams and your ideals, and you know literally sabotaging the beauty that you are.
Yeah.
I have a great story that kind of sums a lot of this up. It's a good teaching story, and it's a story of the ox and the monkey. And once upon a time, there was a really strong, wise ox who was responsible for looking after this beautiful meadow. And he loved this meadow. It was so beautiful, filled with flowers and beauty. And he was just so grateful to be able to be a steward of this area.
Hmm.
And so every day, the ox would go up the hill and sit under a tree and just be present to what was present. And this was his practice. And in the tree, though, there lived a monkey. And that monkey was just like every monkey. It was mischievous and playful, and it was kind of bored. And so it would always be excited when the ox would come up because it had someone to kind of be with. But the monkey, instead of being kind and pleasant, the monkey would be a little bit annoying and would take apples and throw it at the ox and try to, get the ox stirred up. And the ox would never move. It would just be calm and present. And one day, the monkey jumped on the ox's rump, on its back, and started, dancing his little thing on his back. And the ox was completely at peace, as if there was a butterfly dancing. Never flinched, never gave it any time or energy. And this went on day after day, month after month, year after year. And then the monkey finally said, I need to really, really move this ox. I'm like motivated now. I just really want to get some energy from this ox. And it jumped on its head, grabbed its horns, and was like rearing its horns. Now, this ox is super strong. All it had to do was shake its head, and that monkey would have been flown, sky high. And with his strong limbs, he could have just crushed that monkey. But he didn't. And a good fairy noticed this and came to the ox one day and said, Ox, you are my teacher. That monkey is constantly at you. And yet you are so peaceful. You are so calm. You don't react. Where do you get the wisdom? How is it that you don't react and want to kill the monkey? And the ox replied, oh, spirit gave monkey a very small brain. I can't fault the monkey for that. And the monkey is doing what the monkey does. That's what monkeys do. I can't fault him for that either. I just accept the monkey for the monkey. And I focus on what I love and what is beautiful and all the things that I'm grateful for. And I keep coming back that. And I just keep coming back. And the good fairy said, you have taught me a valuable lesson. So I'm going to give you a gift. And I'm going to send that monkey away to a wonderful place that he can never come back from, so that you may have peace. And they lived happily ever after. The
I
end.
love I love fairy tales. And I think it's great because, I mean, oftentimes we call it the itty bitty shitty committee, and it's basically monkey mind.
Mm-hmm.
The host of internal voices that want to tell us, that basically keep jumping on our back and like playing with our horns, and they want to distract us.
They want to get energy.
They
They
want to
want to
get
get
energy.
energy. They want to be fed. They want to be, I don't know, distracted, all those different things. And our
Right.
world is set
Give
up
me
to
attention.
distract us from going inside, because a lot of times we create this reactivity and this inflammation in this world so that we don't have to look too closely at ourselves.
Mm.
We don't have to then change our patterns and our behaviors.
Yeah. So it's so hard. We're not taught. We're taught to react. We're not taught to respond. And we're not taught to look at ourselves.
With love, with kindness.
With love or with kindness. You're right, because we are taught to look at ourselves,
Oh
but
yeah,
we're taught
but it's
to
usually with
like
judgment and justification.
exactly
And so
right.
if we have a different energy behind it, like the ox did, you know, he
Right.
was grateful, he was responsive in the way
And
of that internal,
he was
and he had a
clear,
practice, and he had a practice.
and he was clear that what the monkey was doing had nothing to do with him. It
Yeah.
was what monkeys do. And so when someone comes at us and they're attacking us, or they're saying something that we, how whatever it is, it's not about us, it's about that person. And when we can really get that, it makes it so much easier to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say respond, it's to come back with compassion, with love. And I can't come back to somebody else with compassion and love unless I can come back to myself
Yeah,
with
and that is the
compassion
key. That is the
and love.
key. So
And
taking
that's
those
where,
practices inward.
right. That's where what you were talking about earlier of doing inner practices, of taking time of like, what would it take to make space in my life
Mm-hmm.
for me? And
Yep.
sometimes we keep ourselves so busy. And this is one of the things that I saw with this particular leader. She has got so much going on. I don't know how she does it all. And she doesn't do it all. That's the thing, is because she's keeping herself so busy. And this is, what I see in myself as well. I keep myself so busy that I oftentimes don't make time or space to have that inner dialogue, to say, what else could be going on here?
Mm-hmm.
To look for the patterns and say, you know what? I don't want to get my dopamine hits from blame and shame and not being good enough anymore, from that old pattern.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get my dopamine hits from joy and beauty and love instead.
So being able to ask yourself the question when you feel reactive, and that reactivity could be to blast out at somebody or to run away and isolate, or just to absolutely freeze with fear and uncertainty. In those moments, when you have that visceral reaction internally, then you can ask yourself, what is the behavior I want to now practice that isn't reactive, that is more responsive? What would be the ideal behavior? And sometimes you might hear nothing, which is exactly probably action to do, is just breathe. Just breathe and be still, like the ox. That's going to be my mantra now. Be the ox.
Be the ox.
Be the ox.
I think what you said about breathing and being still, I would say like 90% of the time, that's actually the answer. That's the solution that you seek. It's not something else to do. It's not something to say. It's just being.
Exactly. Give space to yourself.
Being the ox. I love it. Well, thank you so much. This was a fun conversation. At least I enjoyed it. Hopefully, you enjoyed it too. And remember that you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn and on YouTube under the Soulful Leaders. And we will see you all next week on the Soulful Leader podcast.
And that wraps up another episode of the Soulful Leader podcast with your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslack. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to dive deeper, head over to our website at thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com.
Until next time.